Hi, and welcome to a small, medium, at large podcast. I'm your host, Gail Hyson, bringing you intimate interviews beyond normal boundaries. I want to thank all you listeners for sticking with us. This is our 124th show, and I want to thank you all for commenting, liking, sharing, and most importantly, subscribing. So, let me tell you a little bit about our special guest today. Steve Elcock is a self-taught composer of classical music with no formal musical education. At age 15, he composed his first piece. Steve was born in Chesterfield, England in 1957 and moved to France in 1981, where he has lived and worked ever since. After writing music for many years with no prospect of being performed, some scores and mock-ups of his music reached the attention of Martin Anderson of Toccata Classics and Toccata Press in the summer of 2013. Martin described Steve's third and fourth symphonies, and I quote, some of the best orchestral music by a British composer in the last 50 years. Steve Elcock's work is now recorded and performed. Currently, he is the composer in residence with the English Symphony Orchestra in England. The English Symphony Orchestra's recording of his Eighth Symphony and Violin Concerto is one of the Gramophone's recordings of the year. Francis Pott, a composer, said, and I quote, this is titanic music of enormous emotional range, structural control, and dramatic power. Not only is it brilliantly orchestrated, it is also unmistakably the work of an innate master symphonist. At the end of the show, there will be a 10-minute piece for you to listen to. So stay with us, stay listening, and let's welcome Steve here today. Hi, Steve.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. It's nice to be here.
It's a pleasure. I know you're in France now, but I do have to tell our audience that we had the pleasure of an interview. It was actually interview number 29, I think. Oh no, interview number 78, when we had your son on talking about one of his books that he wrote. So we've had Chris Elcock here, if anyone wants to go back and listen to him. And now we have his dad, Steve Elcock. So I'm going to start with my first question that I always ask everyone. And of course, I asked your son this as well. Uh, as a child, did you grow up in a musical family, or how was your environment? Were you exposed to music then, or was this something that was part of something you did on your own, or did your family encourage and appreciate music in the home? Or was there anything about your childhood something that led you to the place that you're at now?
Well, in a word, no, there was nothing like that. There was no music in the home. Um,
Wow.
my grandfather liked to listen to recordings of brass band music, but there was nothing. I don't know where it came from. When
Ah,
I decided I wanted to learn the violin, age 11, I don't know why I decided I wanted to do that, but my parents have always been very supportive and helped me in that without really understanding what it was all about.
but you felt drawn at 11. You knew you wanted to pick up a violin and
Yeah, I
learn to
really don't know
play.
why, but that was not related to appreciation of classical music. I didn't know any classical music. It was because I was learning the violin that I suddenly realized there was this world of music out there. That didn't come till 3 or 4 years later, when I heard a pop arrangement of part of Mozart's 40th Symphony. And I was hooked by that. And I went out and bought the single and wore the grooves off it by playing. And then one day, and again, I don't know why, I thought, I wonder what the original was like. And I went out and bought the Mozart's original 40th Symphony. And that was it. I was hooked
So were
from
you
that.
a teenager then when you
Yeah,
bought
I'd be
that?
about 14, I think.
So, and you grew up in London, in England?
No, not at all. No, I'm from what's called the East Midlands. It's neither north nor south. It's the nearest big town is Sheffield, which is a famous iron and steel town.
Hmm.
My hometown is called Chesterfield, like the brand of cigarettes, though they don't make cigarettes there. And it's a well, it's nondescript sort, but it is on the edge of a very beautiful part of the country called the Peak District.
My grandfather was born in Liverpool. My grandfather came
Oh,
from
really?
Liverpool, yes,
Okay.
but came here as a young, as a young child to the United
Yeah.
States. Um, I'm I'm just what I'm thinking in my mind is we're very close in age. You were born in 57, I was born in 55. So I was imagining you as a teenager and myself as a teenager, and I was only busy listening to rock and roll music. So I'm thinking here you were in England where a lot of the rock and roll music was coming out of between the Beatles or the Rolling Stones and I'm thinking to myself, so were you not listening to that music and you were only and listening to classic, which would mean that you were definitely on a different path than say other young kids at that age.
Well, I was listening to, Top of the Pops and the hits and the Beatles until I caught classical music. And then I continued to hear it because it was on radios that other people were playing. You couldn't really avoid it. But from that point on, I never went out of my way to listen to it. So I'm
Hmm.
kind of stuck from that point of view, from the point of view of popular music. I'm stuck in a time warp back in the early 70s.
Yes. My husband loves jazz music and the music he plays and things is from the 40s.
Oh,
And but
right.
yeah,
Okay.
he wasn't into rock and roll when he's the exact same age as you. And he wasn't into that music. He was into, Fats Waller and
Okay.
so I just like hearing that because I was doing what was everybody else was doing then and I wasn't drawn to those other types of music.
No, I think
So
I felt a little bit isolated because kids were coming into school with the latest LP and
yes,
it just didn't mean anything to me at all. I was in my world of classical music and they were talking about, gosh, I don't know, Pink Floyd maybe, and
yes.
Deep Purple, things like that, which, I mean, I don't know anything about them at all, still don't.
In fact, this last year, um, Roger Waters of was he Pink Floyd?
Oh, yes, I do know the
Yes,
name, yeah.
yes. His son Harry Waters came over and had brunch with us, and so we had a little bit of England here. He was
Oh,
a
that's
very,
nice.
yeah, also a musician, very, very nice man. Met his wife and very, very nice people. So when you started to appreciate this music, you felt sort of alone more because your other peers were not listening to this, but you were going to pursue this path. Did you have any support from anyone else, or did you just alone continue to, or did you find a mentor or someone that you had that shared their Bach and their Beethoven with you, or
Yeah, there were people like that. And also because I was learning the violin, after a few years, I was able to play in amateur orchestras. So I did have a circle of friends and contacts. I wasn't, isolated or just on my own.
great,
I had
right?
my own circle of like-minded people who were interested in classical music.
Oh, that's wonderful. So let me see here. When did you attend your first live symphony concert and
Oh my goodness,
experience that? I
I
remember
don't know.
mine. I
That's
mean, hearing Beethoven's Ninth Symphony for me was one of the highlights of my. I'd been listening to the Ninth and the Sixth for years growing up, and being able to
yeah,
hear it live was like nothing I ever imagined. It was incredible.
yes, it is amazing. I couldn't really tell you when. The local orchestra was the very good orchestra called the Halle, Hall acute, named for its founder. And they played in Sheffield, and they also played in Manchester, across the mid the other side, well, same side as Liverpool.
Hmm.
And so I would go to concerts there, and as a student, you could get in. It's very, very cheap, ridiculously cheap. I can't remember how much. So I would go often to Chesterfield, but I couldn't tell you what was the first concert I went to because I was also playing in these symphony orchestras. So I was having experience of music from the inside as well. And I don't remember whether I started doing that before I started going to concerts or whether it was the other way around.
Well, I have to say, you know what? We have a lot of podcasts here about the paranormal and things like this, but we also have musicians and artists. Uh, the one thing that I could not help thinking as I was reading the things on your website and reading things about you, for me, I feel like how could that not have been another lifetime? When you get so drawn, when people come in, I feel like in this life where they have an attraction to certain things that they don't know where it came from, and they're so talented at it. For me, it feels like it can't be the first time they did this. But I
Oh,
don't
well, perhaps.
I don't know, I can't say for sure whether there are other lifetimes on 100%, but it does seem like some talents seem to be brought in with a person when they're born, and it sounds to me like this was you, that you
Well,
have.
I don't know. There's another point of view which I think I would espouse. Um, I don't know if it was Mahler that said this, but somebody said that genius is the capacity for taking infinite pains. And I think if you're prepared, if you really want to do something and you stick at it, and you want to do it so bad, you're going to get there. I don't think
Mhm,
there's anything, otherworldly or mysterious or particularly gifted about it. It's just going at it like a dog with a bone until you've
mhm.
until you've nailed it. You know?
And you did. So,
Well, I
which I
don't
have
know
questions.
about that. I mean, I still have doubt, and I'm still learning as I go, still trying to make sure that no work I produce is similar to the previous one. Try to do something new each time.
Can you tell us about a moment or any experience that stands out to you as you were on this path to being a composer? Was there like an I got it moment, or a moment where you said, this is what I'm meant to do. I am going to compose symphonies, which I can't even imagine how you do. Just writing one song is such an amazing thing. So I have lots of questions that are questions for someone like myself who have no idea how this is done. So, but first, let's just start with that. If there was,
Okay, there are a
like a
few.
moment or.
Yeah, there are a couple, but it began with a negative moment
Hmm.
because in Great Britain and probably elsewhere in the 70s, the climate of classical music was, for want of a better word, I will call modernistic. I know that doesn't mean very much, but it was a feeling that composers felt that they had to start from scratch and they had to throw away everything that had been built up over the years and start afresh. It was originality at all costs. Never
Hmm.
mind that it was incomprehensible to the average listener. Never mind that it had no melody, no harmony, no drama. And I was hearing this, and I thought, well, if this is the sort of stuff that's being performed, I have no chance because I don't want to do that. I don't
Hmm.
want to write music. I want to write music that grabs people by the throat and moves them as I have been moved by composers from the past. And I really gave up the idea of wanting to compose. This was, aged about, let me see, 17, something like that.
Hmm.
And so that would be in 1974, 75, that sort of time. I actually went to Oxford University to study music. I don't know if you found that
Yes,
on
I have
my
a
slide.
question about that and why you stayed so short and why you left.
Well, I'll come back to that.
Okay.
I'll come back to that. This negative thing stayed with me until, and this was the moment that you're asking for, I heard in 1980 the music of the Swedish symphonist Alan Pettersson.
Hmm.
Pettersson was to die the next year. He was a man who had great hardship throughout his life. He was constantly ill.
Mm.
But his music, it was such a revelation to me because here was somebody who was still alive. He was writing music that was intensely original, and yet it was made up of ideas, motifs that you could relate to, as just as a human being, not somebody who had studied music. It really speaks to you, his music does. And I thought, if he can do that, maybe I can try and produce something with that in mind. It was like a hope thing. I was able to hope that it might be possible to write something that was meaningful to other people without going down this modernistic path. And
Hmm.
without either, the other extreme is just reproducing, rewriting, Mozart's 42nd symphony or something like that. And that was the moment when I felt I was able to be able to do something.
So it felt like a challenge almost that you wanted to see something that would be created that was not what was going on then, which was more modernistic.
Yeah, and I think that the climate has changed since then. And that
Mhm.
sort of modernistic music now, I think, sounds sort of old fashioned. People have been doing that for 60 odd years. And composers like myself, there are a lot of us who are not writing like that at all. They're writing the sort of intensely felt emotional music that I like to think I'm doing.
Which is another question I have down the road here, which is like I can't even imagine what you do. Like, do you go to a studio in your house or a place? Do you have a piano or is there musical instruments in there? Do you sit down with special paper? Like, how do you write a symphony? I mean, I'm just looking at the complexity of there's the violinist, there's the all the different instruments that are being played, and you're writing for each one of those to
Well,
perform and make it together as one group. How do you do that?
well, at first it was very different. This is the special paper, by the way. This is manuscript paper. I think I'm
Oh,
holding it
okay.
upside
So
down.
it is
This is
special
just some
paper.
sketches. I don't even know what it is. But I
Okay.
began using that and the piano and writing in pencil. And my first thought was, if I have any chance of being performed, I'd better write for a small number of players. So I wrote some string quartets, just two violins, viola, and cello.
Hmm.
But it was extremely difficult because I'm no pianist. I had some piano lessons, but I can't really play the piano. And so if I wrote any fast music, I just wasn't able to hear what it was going to sound like because I couldn't play it. And it was extremely frustrating. And I'd very often just stop and, tear it up and start again on something else. And what really helped, and I think a lot of composers work like this now, was when computerized simulation of music became available in the mid 90s. And somebody told me about this. I can't remember who, but I went out and I bought a little synthesizer of orchestral sounds and a program that worked on. I had one of those little Mac Classics at the time. Do you remember this little
Yes.
square ones? And it ran on there. And I bought a MIDI keyboard, an electronic keyboard, to plug into the synthesizer. And to get used to this, I thought I'll make some arrangements of Bach preludes and fugues. And one Saturday, I took a prelude from Bach's well-tempered keyboard, the 48 Preludes and Fugues, which is a sort of the Old Testament, whereas Beethoven's piano sonatas are perhaps the New Testament. But this is just wonderful music. And I thought I must make an arrangement of this. And I started doing it, and it was just a revelation because I could hear exactly what I was doing in real time. And I got
Wow.
so absorbed in it, I worked at it for the rest of the day. We had friends round for dinner, and when they had left, I went back to it and I worked through the night. It was just such an opening of possibilities. And the dawn came, the birds started singing, and I was still there doing this thing. And so, little by little, what I got to do was then work on the piano and write a few bars, then put them on the computer just to check how they were sounding. And little by little, I dispensed with the piano and the paper, and now I work entirely on computer.
Well, my husband, when he was at MIT, he and another man edited and wrote a book about machine models and music. And I think it had I'm not very knowledgeable about music or how any of it works, and I'm a tone deaf person, but he's very talented on the piano and plays great jazz. But the book, they still use it in the course they teach at MIT. So
Oh,
every year he gets a little stipend of, $60 or something for the sale of the
yeah.
book. But the fact is that it had to do with, I think, what you're talking about m machines and music and how they can interface or interact with each other.
I
I'm
think I think computers and machines have been used by modernistic composers just to produce new sounds and new ways of organizing sound. Electronic music is a field in its own right, but that's not what I do. I make simulations, I make mock-ups And also, don't forget, I was never expecting that any of this would be performed because
Yes.
who could I tell? I was living, still am living in rural France. I didn't know anybody, and I had no contact I had one contact in England who becomes important later in the tale. He was a friend. He wasn't at the same school as me, but we went on these music schools where you'd go in the summer, you'd go away for a week and rehearse, and then give a concert at the end.
Hmm.
And he became a producer for the BBC. So he was the one person I would send my things to when I'd finished them. But he couldn't do anything initially anyway. So I
So,
accumulate. Sorry.
so did you have to then find something else, another career for income, or
Oh,
did you just,
absolutely. Yeah, I've never earned
oh,
any money through music. My career was as we in France we set up with an American friend. Well, it became a friend. He was just someone I bumped into. We set up a business providing language services for companies. So that was training in foreign languages, mainly English, obviously, but not only, and
uh-huh.
also translation services. And so we made a comfortable living out of that. And I was just composing in my spare time.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
So you've been doing it since you're a teenager. You've been doing it all your life.
Well, I've been doing it seriously post 1981,
Hmm.
and
That's when you
more
moved
so.
to France, right? In
It
81.
is, and it's also when I just heard, Peterson's music. That was
Mhm.
one kind of scaling up, and the next scaling up was computerized simulation in the mid 90s. But
Yes.
the big wow moment was in 2013 when I sent these scores off to Martin Anderson at Toccata Classics, and he came back with the comment that you quoted earlier,
I was
and
wondering if you
that
could, oh, sorry for interrupting, if you could share
yeah.
with us what is took, I don't know what that is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Toccata Classics is a label. Like Naxos is a label for classical music. They're people who produce recordings, and they produce, if it's a CD, they produce the box, the booklet that goes in the box, the artwork, and the CD is sent to a factory and pressed, and then they distribute it.
Ah,
So Toccata Classics is its speciality. It was founded by Martin about 20 years ago, and his speciality is to bring out music by unknown composers or unknown music by known composers. So there are always pieces that have never been recorded before.
that's
And so
fascinating.
there are a lot of us. It's quite surprising how many people have. He has done amazing work, really. I think he's got something like 700, over 700 recordings that have come out now.
So
And
go on.
I was
Sorry.
going to say that the reason I sent these pieces to him was because this friend I told you about, dating from school days, he came to visit, and I'd just finished a short piece for orchestra, and he said, "Can I take this away with me?" I said, "Sure." And he was a producer for the BBC Philharmonic Orchestra, which is based in Manchester.
Hmm.
And he got back to me a few weeks later. He says, "They're going to play this." I thought, wow, that's good, professional orchestra. I was only 50 something, and this was the first time I was going to have a piece played professionally. So it's a good job I wasn't depending on it for my living, put bread on the table. And at that performance, I met another composer called Robin Walker, who was quite taken with my piece, and we corresponded. And Robin suggested I should send my music to Martin Anderson at Toccata Classics because he had already had a couple of recordings made. And that was
Hmm.
how I got to know about that. And I sent them in the summer of 2013. And as I expected, I heard nothing. And I
Oh,
thought, well, that's exactly what I thought would happen, nothing. And I'd forgotten about it. And then suddenly this email appeared with what you quoted. And
yes.
suddenly I had this thing, suddenly I exist.
Well, recognition and validation, we're all looking for that.
Of
It's
course, yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And your dedication to never giving up and just continually composing without even knowing where it was going to go. That's a real dedication. I mean, that
I
the
don't
fact
see
what
it
you're
like that.
saying.
I don't see it like that. I don't see anything virtuous about it. It was more, I think I compose out of desperation, really.
Hmm.
It's a form of therapy, perhaps. It keeps me, on an even keel. And I don't claim any value or any virtue in doing that. It's just something that I did to keep peace of mind.
Yes. Well, so it was something you did for you, and now it can be birthed so that other people can have the experience and receive
Yeah.
from it what they receive, which is another
Mm.
question I had. Sorry if some of my questions might seem silly, but
No.
how long does it take for you to from beginning to end to create a symphony, and what is the longest and shortest amount of time it took you to do one of them? And how many have you created?
I don't keep records of how long it takes to write them.
Well, I mean, is it
Um,
like years or like one
no, it's
woman I
not.
had, it was 13 years she worked on a painting.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and it's magnificent, but I'm just saying, is there or is it something where you sit down and, within a year? I've been working on a book that I'm finally going to publish, and it's been 20 years I've been sitting on this. So,
Oh, my goodness. But I suppose, like you, it's not. If it were a year, it wouldn't be a year doing 8 hours a day because I just cannot concentrate for more than a couple of hours a day, and
okay.
not every day as well because there are other things that need doing around the house and
Hmm.
family considerations.
And did any
Um,
of your children have any were they drawn to any musical?
well, they were, but not the sort of music that I favour. Christian has two brothers, and they both are trained sound engineers. They went on a
Oh,
course to be sound engineers, but they never worked in that field. They chose not to. But Nicholas plays the guitar, and Damien is a drummer. So they have groups of I don't know what you'd call it. Perhaps popular music would cover it. It's not rock and roll. It's not heavy rock. It's not hard rock. It's what it is. I don't really know. It's not my
hmm.
field.
But
And
it's music.
Christian, yes, it's music. And Christian is a disc jockey as well in his spare time.
Oh,
I don't know if he mentioned that to you.
no, no, I don't know. Maybe, no, I don't think so. I don't remember that. So that's
No,
great. So they've watched their dad doing this, involving
no,
with, they never
not
saw,
really,
have they
not
heard your
really.
symphonies?
I think well, Nicholas is quite interested in what I do. He's the youngest, and he's the one
Hmm.
that's most interested. And yeah, Damien, the middle one, he takes a polite interest as well. But I don't push it. I mean, they're doing their thing, and I'm doing
Right.
mine. But to answer your question, I think an order of magnitude for a symphony would be of the order of 6 months to a year, something like that.
Oh, well,
Because
that seems like
it
a short
is
amount of time.
well, yeah. Because once you've got going, if you leave it, you've lost the thread, and it's very hard to pick up again.
Hmm.
So I do try to keep once I've got it going. And there comes a moment, I don't know if it's the same for you writing a book, but there comes a moment when the music takes over and you almost don't have to do anything. You just put the
Like it
notes
has,
down.
like it has a life of its own.
Yeah, and that happened in the piece that you're going to play at the end of this show.
And
The
was
piece
that your
that
third symphony number three, the piece we're going to play?
no, it's a piece that it has a French title.
Hmm.
It's called Choses Renversées par le temps ou la destruction. And that means things overturned by time or destruction.
Oh.
And it's a strange title, but it is one of these pieces that took over and wrote itself. And it's an interesting anecdote. Because we live in France, my wife's French, I'm English, but we brought up the boys to be bilingual. And so we often, as they were growing up, we would talk about language questions, well, over dinner, things like that. And I mentioned to, I think it was Nicholas, a subject in French. There are what they call defective verbs, which are verbs that don't have all their tenses and
Mhm.
or don't have all their persons. They don't have I, you, he, she. They might just have he or it, and that will be it. So it's quite a weird and an odd sort of thing. I mean, it's like in English, you can say it's raining, but you can't say I'm raining or she's raining.
Right, right.
So it's that sort of thing. And I wanted to check that I gave him an example of a verb that came just off my head, which is a verb, the verb gésir, which means to be lying recumbent, to be lying down. And I said, I think this is a defective verb because you only ever see it on tombstones where it says si J, that means here lies whoever. And I thought I'll check this. So we have this manual of conjugation, and I found the verb in this manual, and it said this verb is very rarely used except to speak of the ill, the dead, or things overturned by time or destruction. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, there's a piece of music right there. I have to do it. And it just wrote itself, really. I mean, I had to do the technical business, but I knew exactly where it was going all the way through. So that's great when that happens. You feel it's not like looking at a white page, you know, the terror of the blank page. What do I put? What do I put on there? When that's done for you, it becomes quite fun.
I'm so glad you shared that, which leads me into another question, which is, have you ever had music or words or anything in your dreams where you woke up and said, I've got to write this. I need to put this piece of music down?
Now, it's a strange thing happened, something like that. But it wasn't the music, it was the words. I
Words.
was in this dream, I was on a staircase and there was some music by Anton Bruckner, who is one of my big favorite composers. And this music wasn't actually anything by him, but in the dream, I knew it was by Bruckner. And the words of what was being sung was, and I loved her all the days of my life. And I woke up with that in my head. And I thought, I must write the music that goes with those words. And I included, there aren't any words, it isn't a song that I wrote. It was the Seventh Symphony, in fact.
Uh-huh.
And the Seventh Symphony has a song hidden in the structure, the melody of the song. And it becomes apparent at the end, and the orchestra plays the melody, to which you could put the words, and I loved her all the days of my life, if you wanted to. That's a bit weird, isn't it? A bizarre sort of way of going about it.
No, I think dreams can bring us wonderful insights if we
Yes.
yes, and sometimes just people just don't remember because they wake up and forget the dream.
Mm.
But sometimes when it's more of a an insight, I feel like it's a stronger dream and we hear the message more clear than say a regular dream that might be from something you did in the day or watched on
Yes,
TV. So for me,
absolutely.
that's an example of exactly how the power of the dream can work. And you followed
Yeah.
it, and you listened.
And it's doubly appropriate because I mentioned Anton Bruckner just now, and Bruckner dreamed the opening of his own Seventh Symphony played on a viola. And in
Uh-huh.
fact, when he came to write it, he had it played on the cellos. But it was the same, actually, Symphony number 7 as well. I mean, it's a strange coincidence as well.
A, a good coincidence.
A good one, yeah.
Uh, so I'm just going through my questions because when we start the questions, they end up being answered in some of the things you've said, so I don't have to
Yeah,
really
and some of the
actually
things
ask
I
them.
haven't answered. You asked me how many symphonies I've written so far.
Yes, and also about why you were a short time at Oxford
Oh,
and
yes.
why did you leave?
Hoping you'd forget that.
No, well, because it's such a prestigious school, and I myself am not a graduate of even high school or any university, so I was curious as to why you left.
Oh, well, how it's, as you say, it's quite a prestigious place. You have to pass an entrance exam.
Mhm.
And I did the entrance exam and I went for an interview and I came back from the interview convinced that they wouldn't offer me a place because there was some oral exams. You had to take down things in dictation, piano. And I was hopeless. And I thought, well, that's it. I'm not going there. But so to my surprise, I got a letter saying they were offering me a place. So when the time came, I went along. But after 2 or 3 weeks, I was acutely depressed. I think I was too young, really, to to go. I should have taken a year out, a gap year, and then tried the following year. But anyway,
Mhm.
I left because I was unhappy. That's as simple as that. There's
Did you
no.
take any, did you look into music there at all or take any music classes in the four
It
weeks
was
you were
to
there?
study music. Yes, it
Yes,
was
to
to study
study
music.
music.
It was. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean,
So,
my life would have taken a totally different course had I been able to stay. I don't know what would have happened. There's a lovely poem. I think it's by Robert Frost. I think it's called "The Road Less Traveled," where he describes walking through a wood and the paths diverge, and he chooses to take one, and he starts wondering what would have happened if he'd taken the other. Very, very nice.
uh, it, that we come to those roads in our life quite a few times, and
Yeah.
the choice we make, uh, sometimes we don't know till 20 years later that, oh yeah, that was the right choice, or that it takes a while for it to come to us. So,
Absolutely.
uh, I have a little input here from my husband because he was listening to the music and he was, I have two questions here, one from my husband and one from Mark Scott. So we'll
Ah,
ask my husband's first, which is, while my husband and I were listening to your Symphony Number 3, he was reminded of the great scores of Bernard Herrmann for Hitchcock and Ray Harryhausen and the Twilight Zone theme. That's when we wondered, have you ever written any musical scores for movie or television? And if not, would that be something you'd be interested in doing?
I never have. No one's ever asked me to. I don't like film music as a principle.
Hmm.
I'm usually irritated by film music. There's more than one film I've had to stop watching because the music's too in your face.
Uh-huh.
And I don't like the idea that the music tells you what you're supposed to be think, what's going to happen next. It gets all scary and you think someone's going to come through that door with a knife. I don't like being told that sort of thing. I prefer to watch the film on my own. So the short answer to all those questions is no.
Okay, that's well, I'm glad that we asked this.
But I've been told before that my music suggests film music because it's quite dramatic. And that's perhaps the impression that your husband had. And
Yes,
that's why
because
he asked that question.
it was very dramatic, and he said, "Oh my God, this reminds me of this piece, and it reminds me of this I
Oh,
heard in that." So that was exactly what he was feeling. In fact, he gave, I'm not musically educated like he is, so he actually learned to play the piano in Yale, and also like you, he's self-taught.
mm,
And it seems like what I've seen about some things is that sometimes these, like if it's a piano teacher, like in my thoughts, it was a piano teacher for my children, it ended up that she sort of turned them off to playing the piano instead of
mm,
encouraging them. So I think people like you and my husband David, who've pursued this because they felt it in their body that they had to do this, and they didn't necessarily want to follow someone else's instructions. They really listened to their own way, and he found
mm.
himself playing all this incredible music. And he doesn't really read music; he hears the music,
Yeah.
and he can just play it. I'm not able to do any
No,
of that.
that's a gift I don't have at all. I'm hopeless at that. Anything spontaneous in music, I am no good at. So
Oh, okay. So that's also interesting to know. So, has anyone ever written a piece or on where they wanted you to do something for them, or have you ever been approached by anyone to
a
do any?
commission that we
Yeah.
would call that. Yeah, that's happened. Yeah, I've had people several times suggest, why don't you write a piece for this ensemble and we'll play it.
Hmm.
And so I've gone ahead and done it, and it hasn't been played. And so now I'm very. Somebody said, well, if you write a concerto for viola, I'll play it. And naive, I hadn't intended to write a concerto for viola, but I did. And of course, he never played it because you need an orchestra, you need a conductor, you need a venue, you need people to record it. It's just not going to happen. So now I treat those requests with circumspection. But recently, I was asked by a trio to write if I would like to write a piece for clarinet, piano, and cello, and I did, and it was recorded. It will be coming out. I don't know when because it takes a long time, but it's a little piece called it's in the French title, because it doesn't matter why. The title's in French, and it's called From the Cabinet of Curiosities. They were I don't know if you know this term. They predated museums. People in the 19th century and earlier collected strange objects from all over the world and put them on show, and they were called Cabinets of Curiosities. And this piece suggests someone walking around one of these cabinets and looking at the exhibits. So that's an example of a piece that was commissioned. Yeah.
Yes, I saw the photo. I saw the picture of the front of it. What a cover. I don't know if it's exactly, but I saw that in French and in English.
Yes, it's on my site. I've got the
Yes,
cover is on the site. Yeah.
yes. Very. I thought it was a very, very pretty front. So I'm wondering, when are you in what people refer to? Have you ever heard the term the zone, where it's
I
like
haven't. I don't know
when,
what it means.
well, it's sort of like when it's if in sports, it's like when the basketball player makes shots that are like like he doesn't even know how he made it, but all of a sudden in that moment he has a different feeling, and the shot and everything goes perfect. And I've heard
Mm.
of other people say that. I think I've experienced it myself some of the time, where I'm in like a different place, and I guess the zone is what's been. It's a creative place, or it's a place where um, it's almost like you're saying it has a life of its own, and the things are happening, and you're
Mhm.
in that space. And I'm wondering if you. I realize how much work this must be to be writing these symphonies, but do you have moments when you're sitting there and it feels like you're in the zone, and it's just coming out of you effortlessly?
Yes, that's what I described when I said the music takes over and it seems to write
Yes.
itself. There are times like that, and yeah, it's always difficult, but sometimes it's encouraging. You think you know you're going to get there. Like the
Hmm.
symphony I'm working on at the moment now, I know exactly what's coming and what I need to do. I'm still a long way from finishing it, but I don't know if that's what you mean. It doesn't make it well, it does make it easier. It's like I said about the blank page. You're not on a blank page anymore. You've got a roadmap, I suppose, for the
Right.
blank
You all of a
page.
sudden you're ready to you're taking off. And are you retired now so that you can fully focus on composing?
Thought you said, "Are you retarded?"
No,
No,
no, you're retired.
I'm retired. Yes, I've been retired about 5 years, so I have as much time as I want to compose.
That's wonderful.
But as I've
And-
said before, I can't do it for more than about 2 hours a day. Because
right.
you know,
And have you been to, so have you actually gotten to go to the England Symphony, or sit there and watch, or sit there and listen and watch a piece of yours then being performed? And if so, what was that like?
well, you can imagine it's marvelous.
Ah,
I have had that experience. Yes. Unfortunately, I've also had experiences where I've not been able to go. Just this last 2 weeks ago, there was I don't know if you can see this. There's in Boulder, Colorado.
oh,
There's
lift it up a
the
little higher.
how's that?
Okay,
Is
and
it the
over
wrong
the
way?
side a little more. A Mahlerfest. Okay,
Marlefest.
and then
Yeah.
lift it up a little more. There we are.
Oh, yeah.
Channeling change, what channeling change into creativity.
Into creativity. Yeah.
Nice title.
My 11th symphony was played there about 2 weeks ago. So it's a first performance. But well, there are two reasons why I didn't go. What the overriding reason is that I suffer from acrophobia. I'm terrified of heights, and I
Uh-huh.
I won't take the plane unless my life depends on it.
Uh-huh.
That's the main reason. The other reason I don't want to dwell on, but at the moment I wouldn't feel safe going to the United States with the present incumbent in the White House. And Ken Woods, who is the conductor of the English Symphony Orchestra, is also the artistic director of the Mahlerfest in Colorado. He said, "Well, I don't think there's much risk, but the risk definitely isn't zero, because you hear such stories of people being arrested just for no reason at all. anyway, that was the main reason is I don't want to take planes. So I didn't go to that, which was a great shame. So apparently it was a great success. But
I
2 years ago, I was the guest composer at the Elgar Festival in Great Britain. That is also something that Ken directs. And there they played. It was a great time because in a week I heard three of my pieces. Uh,
uh,
so yes, it's wonderful. You can imagine it's
I'm
wonderful to
so
listen.
happy for you. It must. I'm just saying what that must be just such an incredible feeling. And I'm so glad that you've gotten to attend some of them, if not, and there may be more in the future because you're going, so does that mean when you're saying you're done your 11th symphony you're working on now? So that means you'll have completed 11 symphonies besides the violin concertos and other things that you've done?
Yeah, there are 11 symphonies are finished. I'm working on number 12, and they're concertos for violin, for viola. There's about 46, I think,
Wow.
works in my catalogue. It's not very many. I mean, a lot of people write. I have a colleague, he lives in London. His opus numbers are in the 300s. He is just amazing. I don't know how he does it. He also writes, he performs, he writes poetry. He's amazing.
So is it like I know all these things that went on with music where I guess they receive a royalty, or I don't know exactly how musicians
Mm.
earn the money when they do this, or if someone plays their song. How does that work with a symphony? Like if they play do they have to get permission from you, or does
You're breaking up,
how
Gail.
does
I
that
can't.
work?
You've sorry, you broke up there, and
Oh,
you.
sorry. How does it work?
Yeah,
Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me
yeah,
now?
you're back. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
You keep freezing. I'm
yes,
sorry.
do you receive any sort of, oh, I wonder why my
No, it's
internet
okay
connection
now.
is on.
No,
Okay, here we go again. Okay, great. So how, or when they play your symphony, or is it every time you play it, or how does that work? Do you receive any compensation or money from that?
well, you have to register your work with um, an
Oh,
organization that protects composers' rights. In Great Britain, it's called the
oh.
Performing Rights Society. In France, it's called SACEM. It's an acronym. And once your work is registered, if anybody performs it, they are supposed to declare that that work has been performed. And then you get royalties, which depend on the number of tickets sold and divided by the time that your work has taken within the whole concert. And then also, theoretically, you should get money for hiring out all the materials because you have to prepare not only the conductor's score, but the parts for all the instruments performing, which is, I mean, with thanks to information technology, it's not as difficult as it sounds, but it still is a big job. And so I send them PDFs, they print them out, but depending on what we've agreed on, they pay me some sort of higher charge for the materials.
So that's a lot of work that you're writing each musical piece for the violin and for the whatever other instruments there are. They're
Yeah,
all being, yeah, the piano. So each one you have
yeah,
to write. Uh, wow, I just can't even imagine this. So because I can't imagine because music seems so incredibly difficult for me. Um, I was wondering if there were any life experiences or spiritual experience or any kind of experience that specifically, could be a positive or negative, that inspired a musical piece you wrote. Like if you lost a person you loved, or if you became in love, or any, was there anything where that emotional aspect of that experience said, I need to write a piece, and that symphony number five came out of that, or something like that.
Mm. I think that the idea that that might be the case comes from perhaps a misconception that the composer is in whatever mood he's portraying in the symphony while he's actually writing it.
Uh-huh.
And that's just not possible. If you're writing a tragic, really desperate piece, if you're feeling tragic and desperate, you probably don't want to be writing music. You probably want to be sitting down with a glass of whiskey or something, you know. It doesn't really work like that. I can't think that I have ever written a piece because I was feeling desperate or lonely or bereaved or anything like that. I don't think that's
Or
no.
what about like, say you said you're married, you have a wife. Did you ever like write a piece for when you were getting married or something about your love together or
No, because we've been married for so long, I hadn't written anything by then.
Well, maybe you could write a piece about what it was like to be with her for all those years.
Oh dear, I don't know if that would be very interesting.
Well, I just,
You
because
know,
the only music I don't understand classical music. I can appreciate the few pieces that I know from when for the little bit of exposure I've had.
yeah,
But when I think of songs like that, for me, I was a rock and roll. That was my music and still is. I'm still stuck in the 60s. But my questions when I listen to those is you find out, oh, he wrote it about this woman that hurt his feelings and that became a number one hit, but it really stemmed from him having to let out his feelings. So that's why I was just trying to see if symphony writing had the same kind of motivation like some of the songs that you hear, that are love
well,
songs or
for me, it does. If you put it differently, it does, but it's not specific events. It's a general sort of feeling that there's a lot to be angry about,
hmm
and portraying that anger in music, how shall I say, provided that you then offer some sort of consolation, I think I think that makes for a valid experience. And my music is very much involved with ideas like anger, consolation, sorrow, heartbreak, loss. Doesn't sound much fun put like that, does it? But they're the themes that are important to me.
hmm
You know, it's not particularly. I mean, I can write cheerful music.
yes.
It's almost too easy. No
I
challenge.
if I
There's a
listen
piece on the site called Festive Overture, which is fun. It's no.
hmm uh I think my Uncle Stanley took me to the library in New York when I was a little girl, and that's how I got exposed to. We didn't have a stereo in the house with Beethoven records there or anything.
No,
That
neither
was
did
how I
I.
got exposed to classical music. Was he was studying in college, and he would take me to listen to the music in the library there while he was doing his whatever he had to listen to about the piece. And I am so grateful to have been exposed because no, my parents were never going to put on a Beethoven piece. None of that would have been shown to me. We didn't get that
No.
really in school. That wasn't in class in school that. And I didn't play an instrument. So only my friends who played an instrument were getting that kind of exposure. So I'm so grateful for that because if I'm ever feeling a certain way, all I have to do is play that Sixth Symphony, and it brings me just such a calming and peaceful feeling that I need at that time. And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter that I've listened to it for, 60 years, it still does the same thing. It's just
Mm,
affects me in a deep emotional way that I'm grateful for. So
yeah.
I've been very grateful for the few classical pieces that I know. Uh, I want to just quickly go down my line here. And okay. And I want to see how other questions I have. Okay. Well, you pretty much asked, but I was wondering if you could just elaborate a little bit more about how it felt for you. It was something you never thought was going to happen, and then everything changed. And I'm wondering, was there any part of you inside that said, I'm going to keep at this until I have recognition and my music is played? Or did you just keep at it because it was what you needed to do for your own self? So was it like a huge surprise, or now it is finally happening? I mean, we're talking it started 13 years ago, but still
Mm.
it's changed it propelled your career. And your music and symphonies are played by various orchestras around the world. I was reading the Siberian Orchestra.
Well, yeah, let me give you some perspective on that because it's not as impressive as it sounds. The, I mean, the
Okay.
great impressive moment was when somebody who obviously knew what he was talking about because his field was music by unknown composers. So
Right.
when this person said this is good stuff, that was the moment. Then the actual truth behind that is rather less glorious because although he promotes by distributing, making this, he can't finance these things, the recordings. And classical recordings are extremely expensive to make simply
Mm.
because of the number of people involved. The first recording, the one that you're going to play part of at the end of the show, that was recorded with the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra. And
Mhm.
to record those pieces, the orchestra is huge. It's close to 100 people involved.
Wow.
So these people have to be paid. The venue has to be hired. The sound engineers have to be paid and hired. And Martin Anderson has to be paid for producing the discs and distributing them. So you can imagine this is a huge budget. And I thought, well, I can do it once. You're talking upwards of £30,000 it was. So that's even more dollars, isn't it? I thought I can do this once, but only once. So I did it, and it brought a lot of recognition straight away. But it didn't bring a lot of performances, and it didn't bring people coming to say, "Please let us record your symphony. We'll not only will we do it for free, but we'll pay you for doing it." That didn't happen. But what did happen is one of my very early fans, just on the strength of the computer mock-ups that I'd made on my site, was a Russian conductor called Dmitry Vasilyev. And Dmitry is the artistic director of the Omsk Symphony Orchestra in Siberia, Russia. And this
Ah.
is a very big orchestra, a very great Russian orchestra. And we got a deal where they would do a recording for substantially less than what I had in Liverpool. And he did two recordings like that. The first one, because he'd made some time available. And the second one, for once, COVID worked in my favor because the orchestra couldn't perform. They were doing no concerts because of the virus. And he said, "What piece would you like to record next?" So we did a second CD on this really cheap budget, you see. But people are not, you have to know an artistic director. I know conductors who would like to do my music, but they don't always have a say in what an orchestra plays. I
Hmm.
understand, and I'm open to correction if people are watching this, they're welcome to correct me. But my understanding is that if a guest conductor is offered to come and conduct, let's say, the New York Philharmonic, they don't say to him, "What would you like to perform?" They say to him, "The program is this, this, and this. Are you interested?" And maybe he can say, "Well, can I do this instead of that?" But there's not much margin for choice. So unless you know somebody who is actually the artistic director of an orchestra, it's very, very difficult to to get performance. And that's why what Ken Woods with the English Symphony Orchestra, that's why he's done such a lot for me, because he's played several pieces of mine. He's taken me to the Elgar Festival, he's taken me to the Mahler Festival. But I don't know anybody else like that, really. And so
Hmm.
I haven't been performed all that much. There've been some chamber concerts, small, quartets, four people. That's happened a lot. But it's not suddenly the gates are open and everybody's rushing to perform your music. It just doesn't work like that. And one of the big reasons is that there's a huge number of people who would love to have their music performed. Hundreds of thousands of people are writing music,
Ah.
and most of them are not getting performed. And the big problem is that the dead people aren't going away. They're still playing Beethoven, they're still playing Mahler, they're still playing Sibelius, And there's all these new people coming along. So the problem just gets worse. And it's compounded by the fact that orchestras, when they program works, they want to make sure that they're going to get people in to pay and come and listen. So they're not going to do a concert of unknown composers. They might do a tiny piece by someone who's unknown, but they're going to put some Beethoven before it and some
Right.
Brahms after it. And that's how that works. And also another, I'm getting a bit carried away here, but the other problem
Okay.
is what I said at the beginning, how what the climate was like in the 70s of modernistic music that people couldn't understand. And the general public was turned away from classical music because of that. If you saw work by an unknown composer, you instinctively thought, oh, this is going to be that modern stuff. I don't want to go and hear it. And it might not have been. It might have been proper music, but mostly that's what people were led to expect that works by a contemporary composer would be like. And so that put people off from programming them as well.
I,
So,
I couldn't help. I just realized that I actually knew someone in the symphony, and I didn't even
oh,
think about it till we were talking. Her name is Elaine Jones, and she was the first black timpanist in
oh,
this. Yes, and she played in the New York Philharmonic. That's what made me remember when you said the New York Philharmonic.
okay.
It was my mother-in-law's best friend, and my husband David. They were two black women who, in the 50s, married white men, white Jewish
Mm-hmm.
men. And that was not popular in that at that time.
I
And they
imagine
became,
not,
yes,
no.
and they were very powerful women who were very close. So my husband grew up with their kids, that kind of thing, two families. And I was so grateful because she came here. In fact, she was drumming on my kitchen table about six months before she passed away.
Oh,
And
wow.
she's quite known because there's a lot of, she used to play tennis with that opera singer, Pavarotti. Her
Oh,
and
really?
Pavarotti were tennis
Okay.
players. And I don't know what you remember because you're in England, but when West Side Story was played on Broadway and they made the album for West Side Story, that's her playing the timpani in that
Okay.
in West Side Story. But she fought with the San Francisco Symphony because they would not give her tenure. And
Mm.
she had a lawsuit or something that went on for years and years, and she never won this. But she had to fight to be a black woman timpanist.
I
And
can
when
imagine.
she was honored in she lived into her 90s, and there was some, I don't know if it was Tennessee, I can't remember where, but there was a percussion award ceremony, and she was given an award for her percussion work as a black woman. And when she got off the stage from receiving this award at 90 years old, she was rushed by all these younger black musicians who said that she had paved the way for black musicians to be in classical music. And
Wow,
that
what a
had
wonderful
she not
story.
opened that door, that she really had set the pathway for them to be able to perform and become musicians. You can look
What
her up
was,
later after we're at the end of the
yeah,
show.
tell me her name again and I'll,
Uh, it just fell out of my head. Elaine Jones, spelled Elyne and Jones. And she
okay.
wrote a book called A Little Woman with a Big Drum.
Oh, that's
And it's the
nice.
story, and in that book, it's her memoir of the story of what it was like for her to uh, be, and she's like 5'2". So when she
Mm.
says and when you'd see, and uh, she played, as I said, here she is 90, and we don't have a drum in front of her, but she's pounding music
Yeah,
out on the table with
you'd be
her
doing it
hands.
all the time, I
She was
know.
so inspirational, and she looked like she was 20 years younger than her age.
Yeah.
And my all my kids, when she came, they were just completely just wanted to hear all the stories she had to share.
I bet she had a lot. I mean, she must be on a lot of recordings if she was the New York
Yeah,
Phil.
I should have gotten her on my podcast because I was doing it while she was alive, and
Oh,
I was going to, and she looked like she was doing great, and then there was and I didn't do it fast enough, so I should
oh
have.
dear.
That's when you always realize you have to do that when you think of that moment with a person, do it now when they're getting up in years.
Yeah.
Uh, so I've got two more questions, and then let's see. I have three questions. I think you might have asked this, but I think this is going to continue. Do you plan on creating and composing more symphonies? You're not retiring from doing that, or as you feel like this, you have more coming out of you. You have the 12th coming, you said. So I think that answers it, but I'm asking you anyway.
Well, I don't think I can usually see further than the work that I'm working on. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I can't, from the perspective of today, I can't imagine a time when I won't have to compose. It'll probably be when I can't because I've gone blind or, I've
Okay,
gone senile or something like that.
that's exactly what I wanted to know. And just two more little questions. What are you most proud of in your musical accomplishments?
Oh dear. I don't do proud. I think it's one of
Oh,
the, isn't it one of the seven deadly sins?
okay. Well, is there maybe a specific symphony that you feel of all the ones stand out most for you? And also, if you could, after you answer that, let our audience know and just spell it out or tell them where they were able to listen to pieces of your music on your website, on YouTube, or let us, if you could share a little of that also.
Yeah. I don't know. There are several symphonies that I think are particularly um, particularly good, I suppose. It's a bit
Yes, it's
flat, isn't it?
okay.
But I think number nine, which hasn't been recorded yet, is something special.
Mhm.
But I also think number 10 is, and this number 12 that I'm working on now is completely bonkers. And if it works out as I hope it will, then I think I'll be very pleased with that. If
Wonderful.
people want to listen to what I've done, so
Hmm.
I don't know if you could put some text upon your show afterwards, but there's my website where you can listen to almost everything, and it's either a computer mock-up, which is done with very good sound libraries. So sometimes these mock-ups are indistinguishable from real performances, so they're perfectly listenable to. And then when the work has been recorded, sorry, I replace the mock-up with the real recording. And so currently there are, from Toccata Classics, the label that's done most of my work, there are 4 CDs of orchestral music, and there
Hmm.
are 2 CDs of chamber music. And in addition to that, there's 1 CD on a label called Nimbus, which is recorded by the English Symphony Orchestra with the Eighth Symphony and the Violin Concerto.
So is that purchasable through your website?
No, but there are links on my website to these other sites. It's easy to find. You can buy them online.
So I always have a description which will have contacts for that all written down. But for the
Mhm.
people who are maybe listening on Spotify or Google Podcasts, could you just tell them the website so that they'll have it?
Well, again, the bulk of the recordings are on Toccata Classics. I don't know off by hand, I mean off by heart the full thing, but Toccata Classics will find them.
But your
Um,
website.
yeah, there's all. Oh, my website is just
Yeah.
Steve Elcock. Sorry, it's steveelcock.fr, I think. If you put
Steve.
Steve Elcock, my name,
Yes.
Elcock, if you type Steve Elcock composer, you'll find lots of articles. There's a Wikipedia article, I believe, in English and in French.
Wonderful. And I'm
You can
just going to
find
spell
everything.
that for our audience. It's
Yeah.
Stevelcock.
I
And
think
you
you've missed
can,
an E out
oh, did
because
I?
it's Steve, Steve, that's my
Ah,
first name, and then Elcock.
that's why I wanted us to say it out on the show. And there they'll find lots of samples and pieces that they can listen to. and also where they can find CD if they're looking to purchase this. So,
Yes, they also offer downloads. If people don't have a CD player, you can download the sound files.
oh, that's wonderful. Even better. So,
Mm.
what advice would you give to a budding classical musician?
Okay. Don't compose unless you absolutely have to. That's easy. And
Ah,
certainly don't expect to earn a living from it unless you're very fortunate and unless you're prepared to write film music, music for television. It's very,
mhm.
very sad. One of the composers who preceded me at the English Symphony Orchestra, a man called Adrian Williams, a very fine composer, he chose to make his career in composing, and he wrote music for television. I think he wrote music for publicity, and I think he's written film music. And first of all, he hasn't earned that much music. The man is quite poor. And secondly, because he has to do that to earn a living, he has no time to compose the serious works that he would like to perform. And I think that's
Mhm.
tragic. So I think if you're going to compose, you should really make sure you've got some other source of income so that it doesn't matter if you don't get performed and recorded.
And is this, is this something like you were saying where does it seems like the composers have to be 50 years later after they've passed or hundreds of
That's
years later
right.
and then all of a sudden they become in the library of
Oh
classical
yeah,
music for
that
everyone to listen to. They don't want
yeah.
you to be alive. I mean,
There are so many stories like that of composers. I mean, I consider myself lucky to have achieved some sort of recognition
yes.
while still alive. While still alive.
Yes. I I I I know you don't want to feel proud, but I'm just saying you should give yourself a good pat on the back to have come this well, to stuck to it all these years and then to finally receive validation for the work that you've done. I think that's a beautiful thing
Well,
and you
thank you.
deserve it. So is there any other bits of wisdom or any other thing? Oh, wait, I do have something here we did not share. Uh, did I say this? I don't think so. On May 16th, 2026, Toccata Classics released the fourth CD of your orchestral music featuring the Fourth Symphony, the Viola Concerto, Hammering, and Furniture. This was recorded by the Moravian Philharmonic Orchestra. Congratulations. That was just last month. And I want to know, where is the Moravian Philharmonic Orchestra from?
It's in the Czech Republic.
Oh, I'm Czechoslovakian too.
Are you? You are
Yes,
really? Oh
half
my goodness.
Czechoslovakian,
Oh, I say,
half
that's a
Czech,
surprise.
Russian, and Polish. My
Were you
grandfather
born
from
in?
Liverpool was not the same DNA. What's that?
Were you born in what's now the Czech Republic then?
No, I'm a second generation American. My grandparents were born in Czechoslovakia
Oh,
on my
right.
mother's side, and my grandparents on my father's side were born in Poland and Russia.
So have you been there to see where your
It's
origins
on
are?
my, I've traveled a lot around the world. I don't have any fears of that, though at the moment, I agree with you 100%. I don't feel like it's time. This time, the way the world is right now, I don't want to be in another country if some crazy
No.
thing happens in the country I live in. So
Mm.
for right now, I'm just staying at home right now, but I'll be traveling again in the future.
Okay, well,
Uh,
I hope you can go there because it's a beautiful country. I had never been really, and of course, because of my fear of flying, I did the whole thing by train
oh, wow. Well, that would
from
have been
France.
beautiful.
Oh, it was
Yes.
terrific. It was really a wonderful trip. And
I heard Prague
so,
is magnificent.
well, I only had a couple of hours to change trains in Prague, so
Hmm.
I saw a little bit of Prague. But to answer your question, the Moravian Philharmonic Orchestra is based in Olomouc, which is 2 hours, 2.5 hours southeast of Prague. It's a beautiful town, incredibly beautiful, and they have the most wonderful beer.
Oh, I
And I
didn't
hope
have
I can
thought
go
of that
back.
as a beer. I think of Germany as a beer place. I didn't think about Czechoslovakia.
Well, you might have seen there's a style of beer called Pilsner,
Yes.
and it's made in a town called Pilsner, which is uh, west of Prague. That's where it comes from. And I would happily pay the Moravian Philharmonic Orchestra another recording session just so I can go and drink their beer.
Well, let me know if you're going to perform. If you're going and they're performing, maybe that'll be my trip to come to Czechoslovakia,
Oh,
and
well,
I could hear
okay.
your symphony and then see the country.
That would be a good idea.
That would be a lot of
Yeah.
fun. So I was going to come to a close now, unless there's any other things. I'm just going to quickly run down my question list to make sure. And like always happens, I had 15 questions here, but you answered them in, say, one particular question, so I don't have to ask the extra ones. So
Yeah, of
see,
course.
this one we did, this we did, Oxford, the husbands. Oh, this I didn't ask. I forgot to ask Mark Scott's question. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
had asked him for a question. So, but I think you probably answered it, but we'll just ask it because I want to be sure I did it. What is the evolution of your development of symphonies as a self-taught composer?
Oh, my goodness.
And I could tell
Wow.
that that wasn't a question written by me. It's too intelligent sounding. I don't know.
I don't know. It's
Deep.
I don't know how to begin to answer that. I mean, some composers, you get the feeling that their later work is more mature than their early work.
Hmm.
That's pretty much true of a lot of composers, and it's true of myself. I think my music's become more complex, perhaps, and I don't know. Uh, there isn't a symphony that I would say, oh, I'm not particularly bothered about hearing that. I don't want to record it. They all are still worth recording in my view. So I
Yes.
haven't evolved to the point where what's the word, where I disown my early works. Not at all. But I do
Hmm.
think I've become better at what I do, and my work is perhaps a little bit more subtle, a bit more sophisticated, dare I say.
And that could be also a reflection of people as we're getting on in life and learning and having more experiences.
Yeah,
So who you could be as a composer at 20, you don't have the knowledge and experiences you have when you're composing at 40.
exactly.
You hadn't
Yeah,
become a parent, you hadn't had children, you hadn't had, all the different things that happen in regular
mm,
everyday life that's affecting your work.
yeah, yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, thank Mark for his question. Sorry, I
Yes.
wasn't able to answer it very satisfactorily.
And want to thank Mark for introducing the two of us and
Absolutely.
not
Yeah.
suggesting, he said you must have him on your show.
Oh,
So
goodness.
I want to
Very
thank
kind of you.
Mark for introducing the two of us. And
Yes.
I also want to say hello, a little hi to your son. We loved having you on our show, Chris. And when we finish and sign off here in a minute, all you listeners stay here because now you will get to listen to a small piece of the work of our wonderful guest, Steve Elcock. So I want to thank you so much for being here today on a small, medium, at large podcast. And I want to thank my son and my daughter for producing and posting our show everywhere. And I want to thank my husband for doing the description. And I want to make sure all of you listeners remember to like, share, subscribe, comment, and stick with us as we enter our fifth year here of podcasting. So thanks so much. Have a wonderful week. Remember that stories can heal, and you should share your stories. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful having you here.
Thank you for asking me. I've enjoyed it very much.
I'm so glad. We'll be right there together with you in 1 sec.